Okay, I'm recording now. Shall I call it, you know yours is called Delicious Reads. I could call mine Fantastic Reads, as in fantasy.
Yeah, might be done already.
Whatever. Okay, right.
We can fantastical reads.
Fantastical Reads. Put Lord of the Rings. Okay. Hello, welcome to my new booktube channel. I'm going to be mostly focusing on fantasy books because that's pretty much... Do you want to pour a couple out so you don't have to rustle the bag?
Just relax as if you were talking to me. But you could just pretend to talk to me.
Okay. Hello then. Got that again properly. Feels weird. Hi, welcome to my new booktube channel. I'm going to be mostly focusing on fantasy books because that's pretty much all I read. Not exclusively all I read, I do read other things as well. I read Captain Corelli's Mandolin recently, which was pretty good. Really good actually. But my girlfriend, who's actually Delicious Reads, who I'm going to link below, encouraged me to make a booktube channel, so I thought why not? And I can talk about some of the fantasy books I have read and am reading, and just get involved in the community a bit more. So, what first? I'll go through a couple of the books I've got that I really like, and then I'll go through a couple of the ones that I've just recently got, and the ones that I'm currently reading at the moment. So I did have a copy of Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings, because what fantasy book list would be... Ah, there it is! Complete! Without at least a mention to this one. I've tried reading this about 7 or 8 times, it feels like, and every time I've failed, except the most recent time where I actually managed to get through it. I'd recommend reading it, because it's the grandfather of fantasy, isn't it? Pretty much everything takes inspiration from this in some way. The hardest bit about it is the language, but you get used to that as you read it a bit more. I really recommend looking for the audiobook version as well, purely for the songs. I found myself, when you find the songs in here, when you're reading them, it's quite hard to enjoy them. You just sort of skip them or don't really take them in. But when you've got someone actually singing them to you through the audiobook, it really makes them that much more enjoyable and that much more immersive. And what's quite hard is once you get used to the language, because he's such a good writer, it's hard to go back to normal fantasy, because or normal books, because he just has a way with words that really sucks you in. So yeah, recommend it, but you probably could have seen that one coming. And again, what fantasy list would be complete without George R.R. Martin's A Game of Thrones? A Game of Thrones, there's an A in it. As you can see, this is a well-thumbed copy. It's got its bits falling off. It's slightly dog-eared, maybe. And yeah, I got this, gosh, how long ago? When was it published, this particular edition? 2003. So, that's a long time ago, 12 years ago. I didn't get it 12 years ago. Or did I? Actually, I might have done. I got it a long time ago. When I first tried to read it, and I couldn't get into it. Similar to Lord of the Rings, I suppose. But then I forced myself to read it and I became hooked. I've actually lent this one to loads of people because back before it was the TV show, it was quite a... You tried to get as many people into it as you could because you wanted them to realise how good it was. So, yeah, I've lent this to brothers and girlfriends of brothers and friends of friends, just to try and spread the word. But you've got to read it. It's very good. Yeah, the TV series is good as well, but it's not as good as this, as they always say. I probably don't need to tell you much about the plot, because chances are you know about it already, because you might have seen the TV series or read it. But if you haven't done any of those, read it. Very good. I shall say no more. Alright, what next? This is an old one as well. I started reading this. Thomas Mallory's Le Morte d'Arthur. It's from the 15th century, and it's one of the classic tales of King Arthur, if you like. It's taken from an old French account, which a chap in England translated and talked about it. And it's a bit like Lord of the Rings again. It's very hard to get into because the language is so thick. But what's quite nice about it, also, it's not very flowery. It's not very poetic. It tends to just be factual stuff. Which, if you just want to know what happened, that's great. There's no faffing around. But you have sentences that are half a page long, and they use words that have been out of fashion for 300 years, you know. But it's great if you want to learn about King Arthur. It's one of the best accounts to do it in. This is actually book 2, volume 2, I should say. I've got volume 1 here somewhere. I got this from a library, so pretty good. Yeah, I'd recommend it. Also, King Arthur's a bit of a dick when you read that. He does some pretty horrible things. He kills a whole boatload of children because there's a chance that his son that he had with his sister might be on it, who was prophesied to kill him. So, yeah, a bit of a dick. Right, this one. Strictly not fantasy, but it's sci-fi. A lot of people like to stick them together, quite rightly. Some might argue. It's a Warhammer novel. Don't judge me. I actually play Warhammer, or I collect them. I don't play it as much as I used to. I'm more into Blood Bowl at the moment. But the novels are very hit and miss. Some of them are really, really, really good. And some of them aren't. Generally speaking, it's down to the author. Some of the authors are incredible. Dan Abnett, one of the best sci-fi authors ever. He's really, really good. I really recommend you checking him out. He does books for all sorts of universes. He's done Doctor Who books, Torchwood books. He wrote some comics, X-Men comics, I think. His series, Ravener and Eisenhorn, which is set in the 40k universe, are some of the best books I've ever read, if you're into this kind of thing. He has a talent to make boring stuff interesting. He's one of those authors who, even if all they're doing is sitting around having dinner, he gets you hooked, which is a real rare skill. Right. Joe Abercrombie, he's up and coming. Well, he has been for a while. He's a relatively new, quite young fantasy author. I actually met him not too long ago. I got him to sign this book. There we are, which is quite cool. He's done a couple of series. He's done I'm sure he's done other books, but this was the second series of the first world he created. He made the First Law, the Blade itself. No, the First Law series, which are incredible, and then he did another series in the same kind of setting, of which this is my favourite, The Heroes. Such a good book, such a blooming good book. He does gritty fantasy, and it's gritty. It makes you want to explore the cold north and meet up with mates and start forging a name for yourself by doing deeds of battle and all sorts of stuff. It's really good. Really recommend it. This book in particular struck me as great because it's all just set on one day. The whole plot happens in one day. One battle of one day. Wait, no, sorry, not one day. One battle over several days. But it's all just one battle. The whole of the book takes place in that same battle. And it's brilliant. Really, really good. But read the First Law series first. Then read this one. No, where is it? No, there's that one. Oh. Then read this one, Best Served Cold. That's great. Then read this one, and then read Red Country, and then you'd be very happy. He's released another series very recently called the Half the Something series, the Shattered Sea series, that's it. I got this for Valentine's Day, thank you very much, Anna. Half the World, which is the second one, this is the first one. Same author, whole new setting, really, really good. Really good, actually. He says it's more YA, and I guess it is. There's a lot less adult things. There's still some but you sort of, it doesn't matter so much. You learn about them in here, and then you find out why they are the way they are in here. So it's actually all right. Right, books that I have bought but have not properly read yet. First one, Trollslayer. The first in a series of Gotrek and Felix books, which is again Warhammer. This is Warhammer Fantasy though, so it's a bit different. There's less guns and more dwarves. I bought this just on a whim, because I've heard of them before. There's about 12 books, and each of those books has about 8 stories in it, so there's blooming millions. And I thought, why not? Give it a go. It's a bit hit and miss at the moment. Certain bits of it are good. Certain bits of it aren't. For example, there was one sentence, which is just, I think it's just stupid. What was it? Felix's muscles felt tense with tension. Not exactly the best well-written line. But then he has some really, really nice bits as well. Like comparing mountains in the distance to islands in the sky. It can be really quite pleasant. Also, there's lots of fighting, which is always good if you're into that sort of thing. And Gotrek is brilliant. He's just your typical grungy, mushroom-nibbling dwarf who hates elves and calls everyone pansies. He's funny. So, give it a go. You could probably find it cheap, but just be patient with it because it's not written perfectly. It's no Joe Abercrombie or Dan Abnett, but you know, it's all right. I also bought this one. I've never ever heard of it ever, but I bought it in a charity shop because it was 50p and it was buy one get one free. So I went a bit, you know, crazy maybe. Not as crazy as some people though, that I could mention. I know, but no. So never heard of it before, but I thought it looked all right. It's a fantasy series. It's a I don't know when it was released actually. When was it released? Written by a guy I've never heard of, James Maxwell. Oh, 2014. So actually it's very new. Wow. Yeah. So, don't know, might be good, might not be. I'm going to read this after I've read this one. Maybe I'll start it now actually, because like I said, it's short stories, so you can take them and leave them, which is nice. And I shall report back on this when I finished it. I've got lots of other books that are worth talking about, but I'll probably save them for another time. But just briefly, if you haven't heard of them, check out the Malazan Book of the Fallen, because they're brilliant, and the books themselves are also massive. Look at this one. So if you like your big sweeping fantasy, check them out. Also, they're just written incredibly. The writer's like a poet, and almost every line is just, yeah, poetry. It's brilliant. Other than that, that's all really. See you later.
How long is that?
11 minutes 46 seconds.
That's good.
Timed it. I had a timer in front of me so I didn't ramble on for ages.